Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. It's time for our Impact Interview, and this week's guest is NBC Sports analyst Todd Blackledge. And Todd, I think you'll appreciate this reference, and I'll give Jay credit for the research, the crack research staff. You are now our Steve Martin to Saturday Night Live, our first three-time guest. So I'm not sure that's a good thing.
He got it.
But that's your new title, that's your new thing, along with all the other things that you have. So, academic All-American, national championship quarterback, three-time guest of Nittany Game Week. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Hopefully it's not just an old thing, I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah, awesome. It's great to have you. So, look, you got a first look at Penn State this year, under the lights, a really great atmosphere with West Virginia, and that look included the new starting quarterback, sophomore Drew Aller. So give us your impressions of the quarterback play. Obviously, you're familiar with the environment, so we know that was terrific. But how do you think Drew has responded and looked in those first 2 weeks?
Well, first of all, I thought that I'm not sure he could have played any much better in week one, and done more, to just kind of introduce himself, really as the starting quarterback. He was accurate. He was sharp. He knew where he wanted to go with the football. There was only one throw that he put the ball kind of in harm's way, and that was just because it was late. He knew where he wanted to go. He was just late throwing. Almost got picked off in the end zone. But I thought he looked great, I give a lot of credit to James and his staff for what they did with him last year, and not only taking him on the road, but playing him in a lot of games. And, certainly a lot of that was mop-up duty, but there were times in the Purdue game, in the opener he played where the game was still on the line. He played at Michigan. He played in some places. And so I don't think the stage was too big for him in that opening week. I could just look in his eyes, even on camera, and see that he felt pretty good about where he was at. So I thought he did great. Obviously, having the running game that they have is a big advantage for any quarterback. That was my best friend when I was playing, was having a great running game. And so it just sets up so much of everything else you want to do offensively. So I thought he got off to a great start, and then didn't have to do as much last week. And now from this point on, there'll be more, in front of him for him to do. But I think he's up for it.
Todd, while it's still early yet, it seems like, this Big Ten is going to be wide open. You look at Penn State's schedule now, there's 2 interim head coaches on their schedule, most likely. They've got Michigan at home. Ohio State does not appear to be the same offensively they've been. Is this a year that Penn State now can sneak in and run away with this thing and take the Big Ten title?
Well, I don't know about sneak in and run away. I think that they can certainly, have a chance to make their claim this year. Now, I think that, it still has to be done on the field, right? And I don't think they have to beat both of those teams, but they have to beat one of them. And I think maybe they match up a little better with Ohio State, because I think Ohio State is a little more finesse and Michigan's a little more power. But the other side of that is they play Michigan at home and they play Ohio State on the road. So, but I think from a roster standpoint, talent standpoint, I think Penn State lines up really well with both of them. They just got to figure out a way to win. And so I think if the quarterback continues to play the way he is, if their receiving core, outside of Keandre Lambert-Smith, if some other guys begin to emerge and step up, more consistently, I certainly think they have the team that's capable of winning the Big Ten championship and ultimately getting to the college football playoff.
Hey, Todd, Penn State came in with a lot of hype on defense this year. How do you got to see them live? How did you like them when you watched them, and how do you compare them to some of the other teams in the Big Ten's defenses?
Yeah, I like them. I think they've got depth. I think they got length, speed. I think that, really last year they got exposed and kind of embarrassed up in Michigan and gave up over 400 yards rushing. And some of that was just getting manhandled. Some of it was just, not being in the right place. Some of it was guys trying to do too much. But after that game, I thought their defense really settled in under Manny Diaz, and they played really well down the stretch. So I think they picked up where they left off a year ago and are a very solid defense. The one area of their defense that I wouldn't say it's concerning, but it's maybe not as strong or dominant as the other areas is just the interior of their defense in their defensive tackle position. I mean, I think they got good players there, but they're not the biggest guys. I think their edge guys are great. I think their three linebackers, are all 230, 240-pound guys that can play. And even though they lost two guys in their secondary to the NFL, I think their secondary is still outstanding.
Always enjoy catching up with one of the premier voices of college football. We're going to step aside for the TV show to take a break. We will continue our interview with Todd Blackledge. So if you want to see the entire conversation, you're going to have to go to NittanyGameWeek.com for the entire interview, along with other web-exclusive content.